Yeah. Wrap it up.
That's what she said.
Wrap it up. Oh, that's funny.
It's not funny when you say that's funny.
It's funny in my head.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of Books I Make My Husband Read. I'm your host, Kristy, and this is my co-host, my darling husband, Jon, whom I make read all the books.
Darling. You said darling in the first episode, too.
I know.
Hi, everybody.
Bringing it full circle.
Nice.
Can you believe it?
What?
I guess the answer is no. You cannot believe it. We're on episode 10.
Woo!
Wow. Your enthusiasm is unmatched. Well, we are on episode 10, and today we're actually not going to be discussing a book, but instead we'll be talking about some of our favorite moments in season 1.
Nice.
And I did want to say before we dive in that this episode will be 100% spoiler free. So if you haven't read any of the books that we've covered this season, don't worry, we won't be spilling any of the tea here.
Hey, I'm the one that makes the jokes.
Well, you can't have all the fun, so.
Fine.
Before we dive in, don't forget that you can keep up with our podcast and everything else we're up to by following us on Instagram at Books I Make My Husband Read.
What about our website? Have we ever mentioned our website actually in this thread?
Yeah, or not. That's actually a really good question.
That's funny.
So our website is
booksimmakemyhusbandread.com.
That is correct.
Or BIMM. But wait. BIMMHR.com. Yeah, that also works.
So let's start talking about the season. So the first book we covered this year was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. In this episode, you mentioned that you were thinking that your next tattoo would be of a dragon. Where you are with that?
I am in the planning stages. So I have a large Pinterest board full of inspiration. I've started following some artists on Instagram, though I've noticed recently that some of the artists I've been following are actually in like Germany or other places in Europe. And I'm like,
that sounds great to me. Let's take a trip to Germany and get some tattoos because it's also a vacation. So it's not just the tattoo.
That's fair. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I have loads of inspiration. I have a handful of artists that I think could pull off said inspiration. I want this one to be more artist inspired, meaning like I give them a general theme and maybe a couple of inspiration picks and then say like, I want a full sleeve of X, which is not how I did my right.
So you're going to do a full sleeve of dragons?
The dragon will be the central theme of the sleeve. And then I want the artist to sort of build a world or other things like encapsulating around that.
So real serious question, and what the listeners actually want to know is, are you going to make your tattoo artist listen or read Fourth Wing for inspiration? Books I make my tattoo artist read.
I think I should. That seems like a legit ask.
Yes, I think your tattoo artist just really needs to be able to grasp the, feelings in the book. Then you'll have someone on that's a little dragon rider.
I could just see them illustrating like a little version of me.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. I would love that. So do you feel like we missed anything in that episode? I know, and we're not going to, talk about it here because again, no spoilers, but I know there were a couple of characters we didn't get to really dive into in episode 1, but any like major things or themes that you feel like we missed listening back to it?
No, I think we missed on a couple of characters. I think we probably could have gone deeper on some.
That's literally what I just said.
I know. I'm agreeing with you.
Oh.
Maybe some of like the interpersonal relationships between some of the B-list characters like Imogen or others. There is plenty there that we could have like chipped away at too.
There's just so much. I mean, it's impossible.
Right.
It's a pretty thick book to begin with, but it's impossible to cover it in, a 40-minute podcast episode.
Yeah. And over our first couple, we were really trying to stick right around that 40-minute mark. And obviously they've gotten a little bit longer since then, but that played a part in that first episode of like what we did or didn't talk about.
Yeah. And there were things that we cut. So
yeah.
All right. So let's move on to episode 2, which was If We Were Villains by ML Rio. And this was our most, or still is our most listened to episode as of this moment, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I freaking loved listening back to this episode, and it reminded me how much I love the book, and I still freaking think about this book, I swear, on a daily basis.
This one actually made me cringe because the audio quality
I know, you
in
were
episode 2 was so bad.
So funny enough, I do feel like the audio quality improves, especially moving into the 3rd and 4th episodes, but you only notice it, or I only notice it, if you like listen to them back to back. If you listen to it by itself, it doesn't sound terrible,
Yeah.
but there is a distinct difference if you're listening to them, consecutively.
Yeah, that's fair. It was also the episode of our first swoosh.
Yes. Yeah, if you're not prepared for the swoosh or you haven't heard it, it can be a little jarring. I agree with that.
But I'm glad we kept up with it. It is a nice little segue or break, an audio break in the medium to indicate like when the pieces are coming. So
yeah, I mean, I think all that matters to creating a really quality sounding podcast that is appealing to people's ears, and like they want to, like the same with the music. Like we took a long time and debated over the music, and we didn't agree on some of the ones that were like our finalists. I think we both like what we have now, but it matters, it matters.
Yeah. But back to the episode. This episode cracked me up because we had a lot of legal debate in this episode.
Yes.
Which, as listening back, I was still laughing out loud. And your little dun dun Law and Order reference was kind of cracked me up too. So I also felt like I did my most amount of homework for that episode.
You like brought it. When I listened to it, I remember the part where I was like, you are a lawyer.
Yeah. I did a lot of homework for that one.
You were quoting Julius Caesar. I'm pretty certain you've never read Julius Caesar.
Nope, sure haven't.
I love that book. And a couple weeks ago, I had some coworkers in town. I was talking about the podcast, and they asked me what books we had covered. And, I rattled a few off, and someone else loved that book as well. And we just started talking about the book and the depth of the book. I just think there's so much in it. And I'm also going to say it's probably not for everybody. I had a friend read it, and she said she started hate reading it about halfway through because she didn't like it at all. So, I mean, fair, fine. Not all books are for everyone. But when a book stays with me and I continue to think about it, that's when, to me, it's just so good.
Yeah. I agree.
All right, so let's move on to episode 3, which was our first and actually only historical fiction novel that we covered this season. It is The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhen. This was actually the first episode where you dropped, and that's another one in the books.
Yeah, you were not a fan. I don't know if you are still a fan, but we stuck
I didn't
with
get it. No, it's not that I'm not a fan of it. That's totally not true at all. Remember, I did not even catch it. And then you said it again in the following episode, and I also didn't catch it. And then finally I said that I was ready for like the 5th or 6th episode or whatever.
And you love puns.
I love puns. I think that, we're in this moment and there's a lot going on, worried about like not making too much noise. We live in a noisy neighborhood, so we're always like really concerned about sounds. And I don't know. We got to the end of the episode. I was just probably ready to be done and wasn't paying attention.
That's fair. Episode 3, listening to them back to back too, I thought to myself, man, I really need some more fun ways to intro myself as opposed to just saying,
hello.
Hello. Hi, listeners. What's up?
I even teed it up a little for you this time.
You did. So note for season 2, I'm going to work on my intros.
All right. I really love this book. I know you found some fault in it, but you enjoyed it still.
I did.
And I think you rated it 4. I rated it 5.
Yeah. I think I would do another historical fiction, actually.
You don't get to decide that. This is books I make you read.
I know. I'm putting it out there.
Oh, you're interested in another historical fiction?
Interested in.
Funny enough, despite this being books I make my husband read, I actually gave you a choice on this one. I said, hey, let's do a historical fiction novel. And I gave you the choice between The Women and The Frozen River.
That's right.
And The Women is phenomenal. I mean, I love The Frozen River. It is one of my top books of the year, but The Women is maybe even better. I thought you would actually pick that one, and I realize you're only reading the back cover when you're deciding, but I thought you would pick that one, and you picked The Frozen River.
I don't even remember.
You don't remember this conversation?
No, I remember this conversation.
This never happened.
Because I was pretty quick to decide too when you offered me of the two options.
You did, yeah. So I'll be thoughtful and what we'll have for next season.
All right. I will wait at the edge of my seat.
All right. You want to move on to book number 4?
Enter the rom-com.
Yes. This was our first rom-com. It was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And in our last episode, episode 9, you said that of the 3 romantic comedies that we read this season, that was your favorite.
It was. I loved the banter. I loved the dialogue. Even though you said this isn't, banter and dialogue are the same thing. You said this isn't really an enemies to lovers trope though, right? This one was more of a...
It is not an enemies to lovers trope. This is like a fake romance.
That's right. That's right. I loved how it was written. I loved all the characters and the interpersonal dynamics between all the characters. I loved our discussion on George Clooney and the whole scene of...
Hey, no spoilers.
That's not a spoiler. That's just calling out a name. We actually, re-listening to it, it is actually a little cringy. We say hilarious a lot in that episode.
When I've listened back, there are a couple words, I'm not going to call them out because then people are going to start listening for them. There's a couple words that I say too much that I was very cringy. Like, geez, Kristy, like you have to clean that up. Get over it.
Get over it. Yeah. Hilarious was one of those. Like, it was a lot. But the book was hilarious. I mean,
the book was hilarious.
It's a very well-descriptive word for the book. But maybe we should have like, thesaurus.com up while we're doing it.
Hold on. Let's re-record that. Let me look this up real quick.
Yeah.
I feel like reading a book by Abby Jimenez is like having lunch with an old friend. You knew that you needed it, but you actually didn't realize how good it was for your soul until it was over.
That's so sweet.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel when I read a book from her. Like it's done and you're like, oh, I really needed that.
Right on.
All right. So then our 5th episode was The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich. And this is a book that asks you, what if? What if you had access to the exact length of your life and the length of the life of those around you?
There's a small part of me that wishes we would have an opportunity to like redo that episode.
Really?
Yeah. And I say that because...
we actually got an argument right before it.
That got edited out. Listeners didn't have to hear that part. It was...
I actually don't remember if that it was that episode, but there was one episode when I wouldn't even call it an argument, but we were just like both in bad moods and taking it out on each other.
Yeah, for sure. I think though, for this one, looking back, it was a point in our season where I was starting to feel a little overwhelmed by the number of books I had to keep up with and the editing and our releases. And I felt like I had to really cruise through the book in order to get to the conversation. And now that I've had like a chance to sit with it a little bit more and digest the deep conversations that, or in questions that you asked during this episode, I wish we could have recorded because I feel like I would have, I don't know, a better, but I think more like in depth, I think maybe. Anyway, it was just one of those, there's so much to that book and so many what ifs, like you said, that I think having a little bit more time to have sat with it, I think I could have shown up a little bit better for that one.
Do you feel like you would rate the book higher? Because you at one point said you're going to give this book a 3, which...
I said a 3 or a 4.
I know, but hear me out. I'm not arguing to change your mind. But knowing that and then listening to...
This is the episode we got in an argument about. Here's this topic right here.
That's not totally true. We already had the argument. We were just on each other's nerves. But having said that, and like listening to you say you were debating between giving it a 3 at one point, and then you went to a 4. But then if you listen to an episode, you have so many positive things. You compliment the author and how the way she thought through things, and you really related to the characters. And after I listened to that episode, I was like, how can he give this book almost a 3 when he has such good things to say about it?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it could have played a part, the mood, the just tempo of everything. It could have played a part in how I was feeling. Because I love character-driven books, but I do think over the course of this season, I've also discovered about myself that I do enjoy books with a more steady plot line.
Like they're moving towards something.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's part of why I also have such a hard time reading biographies and things like that.
Because it's just someone talking about themselves.
It's just someone talking about themselves, yeah. And
I totally get that.
There's a number of them that I would love to read and people that like I admire and I would love to know more about their backstory, but I can't fucking get through them. They're just so dry.
I mean, you bought Bono's biography and I read it.
You did. I got like a quarter of the way through. I'm just like, I can't. I can't.
I get it. I do think also listening to those, especially like he does his own voiceover, that's better.
I think so too. I think if I were to tackle a biography again, it would have to be audio.
Yeah, I agree. I think that reading some biographies are just a little dull, but if you can hear the person's voice in it, and there's a few that I enjoy. But anyway, back to this book. Just to be clear, I'm not mad you gave it a 4, but I was a little offended you almost gave it a 3 because I think that is not right based on the way you spoke about it.
That's fair.
All right, moving on. Do you get that?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, this book definitely took you on an emotional roller coaster. And I just wanted to say it as I was listening to the episode. There's a quote, and I still think about it's like something I think about, and it says, again, if you haven't read the book, this isn't a spoiler, but everyone who's in the book finds out one day how long they're going to live. So the author says, the beginning and the end may have been chosen for us, but the middle has always been left undetermined. And I love that sentiment because whether you know how long you're going to live or whether you don't know how long you're going to live, that is so true.
Mm-hmm. It's how you live your life.
Yep.
Who you surround yourself with and all of those things.
Yeah. All right. So episode 6, we jump back into the fantasy world and we read Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. And honestly, I think this is one of my favorite books of the year. When I was re-listening to our episode, I got really excited. And especially I got excited about all my theories and like predictions that I had, which I won't share here because again, no spoilers. But if you have read the book, you should definitely go listen to that episode. And if you haven't read the book, you should read the book and then go listen to the episode.
Yes.
So the sequel and what will be the final book in that series releases on February 18th of next year. And I actually just saw on Kristen Ciccarelli's Instagram page today, someone asked her if that will for sure be the last book in the series. And she said that she would love to write another one. So you never know.
No.
But this is supposed to be the end of that story. So who knows? Maybe it'll be like a prequel. Maybe we'll find out more about some of the beginning of Rune's origin story, which is something you talked about in the podcast that you would be interested in. But again, we don't want to give a spoiler. So my question for you is, this one comes out February 18th. We plan on doing maybe our first episode around that time. Do you think we should cover that book? Maybe not first episode, but do you think that should be one we cover?
I absolutely think so, because this probably was my favorite book of
the season.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you could hear it in our dialogue too. Like,
totally agree.
It was just everything about the questions, the way we answered it, how deep we went into some of the questions and conversations. It was our longest episode, which like actually stressed me out for a little bit. I was like, we're trying to hit
53 minutes. You're like freaking out. I'm like, and I listened to it. I'm like, it's good though. Like I wasn't bored at any point. And there was no question where I was like, oh, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Like everything just flowed so fluidly in that one. It was really, there was nothing to take out that didn't lead to the next thing that we talked about. And so
yeah,
I just really enjoyed that book. I enjoyed the enemies to lovers trope. I enjoyed
winky winky
fantasy piece too. I even said in that episode, I'm like, I like this level of romance.
Yes, you did. You also said that in a very, very bromance too.
I did. Maybe he's rubbing off on me.
What you said, you love this level of romance, which is funny because there's actually not that. There is like the angst, I'll say, but there's no romance in the book. There's no like spicy scenes in the book.
There's one.
I feel like that's a level 2 spice.
Too
little jalapenos.
I didn't know spice had ratings. Okay, I thought it was.
Oh yeah, there's a whole spice rating. Yes.
Okay. All right.
I mean, again, it wasn't they go to bed and it's not a closed door romance, but it's not like some of the other, it's not Fourth Wing or.
Yeah, that's fair. So to answer your question, yeah, I absolutely think we should do this one. I think it'd be a fun way for listeners too, to then go back and re-listen to like our first episode before they read the second book or something like that. Like
promo up.
You're right. Yeah. And I feel that way actually about Iron Flame too. I know we've gone back and forth if we should cover that book or not, with the third one coming out next month, January.
I just think we kind of missed the boat with it because Iron Flame is already out and done and dusted. Not that people aren't still reading it. I'm going to reread it between now and the release of Onyx Storm.
And I think that's why it could be a good episode to do, because people would likely reread it before they read Onyx Storm.
But then do we do the third one in the third season? I guess we do season 3 in fall again. That's a possibility before fourth one comes out I'm assuming fourth one's going to come out the following year.
I would think. So anyway, yeah, I think we should do it. I think it's fun to cover a series, and it gives up listeners opportunities to kind of listen to past episodes as well before they go and read the next book.
I think that's a fair point. I do think this episode was where we really hit our stride, and I personally felt really comfortable behind the mic, and I think it came through in our conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Even though, funny enough, this was actually the episode where I had asked you to sit a little bit farther away from your mic, and so you sounded distant, which right before we got on this episode, I was like,
make sure you're close to your mic.
And you're like, you told me to sit so far away.
Far from my mic.
Like, I know.
That was an exact reenactment of 36 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's very true. But I mean, that also plays into just like our first season. I've been experimenting with
absolutely
everything. Is like we've been experimenting with our Instagram account, with our format, with the audio quality, with what tool do I use to edit. Just everything has been a giant learning experience. But I agree with you. This episode, I do feel like we hit our stride and conversation got easier, a little bit more natural sounding, I think. And
natural sounding is really good way to put it. So after Heartless Hunter, we transitioned to another rom-com, which was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And this has my personal favorite trope, which is the enemy to lovers. And also in this book, I just freaking love the female main character, Nora Stevens. And her and I will be best friends.
Yeah, this one was fun. This one actually sparked a little dialogue from my family, actually.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I didn't know where you were going with that, but yes.
Where, I talk about growing up in the small town and not really...
Just a small town boy.
Not really comfortable on knowing how to be my authentic self for, a lot of my youth. So for being a rom-com, there was actually a good number of pretty deep conversations that we had in that episode, which I thought worked really well. And it actually is part of what I think I like about this podcast is it's not also just about the books, but it's about certain dialogue about our relationship comes through, or our past, or we try to make our own kind of connections to the book, which I think is part of what I hope other people are enjoying about this.
Well, and I think that's what people love about books in general is that, one, not every book is for every person. Not every book is for every point in your life. And that was actually something I mentioned in one of the early episodes, that it's okay to not finish a book. It's okay to start a book and then go, you know what? I am not feeling this right now. I'm going to set it aside because maybe something's going on in your life. But to your point, everyone is reading a book through their own lens. So I might love a book and you might love a book, but we love it for different reasons.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes they are the same, and that's okay, but we're bringing our own experiences and our own thoughts and feelings into that book with those characters, with that storyline, and everybody get something different out of a book. And I just think that's the magic of storytelling, that you can create something that's so good that so many people can enjoy, even though we're all coming into it from different places in our life, different experiences, different set of circumstances.
Yeah, totally.
But I think to something you mentioned a few minutes ago is that's why I like Emily Henry's writing. I like Abby Jimenez's writing, is that you can enjoy this and laugh, but they're also covering some pretty serious topics in their books. And they also do it in a way that I think reminds people, and this is my perspective, like it reminds people that it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to open up about these things. It's okay to be going through these things, to have these issues. It's okay to not be okay. And I think that a lot of people need to hear that right now. But again, to your point, I think that that's what's so great about some of these, romances, that it's not just about the romance. I would say like some of these new age romantic comedies, it's not just about the romance. Yeah. It's about real life.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, reading all these books that I have over the course of this season is probably played a part in me getting more comfortable in front of the mic, in me getting more comfortable talking about the books and that sort of thing too, because just for that reason, like the more of them you read, the more comfortable you get with it, the less taboo it feels.
Okay, so we just talked about Emily Henry, which was episode 7. And then we moved on to episode 8, which was our psychological thriller. And we read The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. And this was your first Frida novel. And you had a very memorable quote from that episode that a listener commented on. And you said you were going to drop that bitch like a hot stone.
That seemed like a proper saying when I came out of my mouth. It was like, that's what people say. Apparently not.
And we said, I think you meant drop that like a bad habit. But what does it drop it like hot stone mean?
Like a hot potato or something like that, I think it was. Yeah, I don't know. Hot stone just popped out of my head. Just popped out.
I'm not kidding. I posted that the episode was live at, 6 a.m. or whatever. And by 8 a.m., someone had commented, drop it like a hot stone. What do you think of the book? I mean, we talked about this a little, and again, no spoilers here, but I know that was your first Frida book. It's actually the first and only real psychological thriller that we did this season. And I know, ironically, that's our favorite genre. So I would be interested in doing more of those in season 2. But any overall thoughts about the episode or something you wish we would have done differently?
No, like actually that was a point I was going to make in this. Was I was surprised that it was our only psychological thriller in the whole episode, because that is such a favorite genre of both of ours. I'm doing more rom-coms than thrillers, which was fun. But that's also like, it's a different genre for me. So I think that was part of the fun, at least for me. But I would like some more thrillers. Thriller in...
Thriller night. It was probably the episode before when it dawned on me that we did all female authors.
Oh, shit.
And so we need to change that for season 2. I mean, I definitely do not mind giving, all the glory to the women, but
sure,
we should probably read a couple authors by some men, or some books by some men.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, never even crossed my mind, because you're like, read this. And I'm like, okay. So I never even really pay attention to the author, unless we talk about the author in particular. But that's kind of crazy that they were all female authors. As far as the episode goes, I think we just kept getting better and better. I think that one felt really natural in our conversation and discussion. It was fun talking about when we each kind of realized the moments at the end and when those moments occurred for both of us. Yeah, and just kind of like the different perspective of Tom, the main character that we had in that episode too, I thought was, you had mentioned a couple of things where it had never even crossed my mind to think about him that way. And it just kind of made me look at him differently. Yeah. What did you think about that episode? What was your reflection upon listening to it again?
I liked it. I liked our dialogue within the episode itself. And I just really love Frida McFadden and her books and the pace of them. I'm just reminded that I want her to write a different type of female character.
Oh, yeah. A different female character. I mean, I don't blame you for that.
Can you please write a competent, smart, competent and confident female who's not ignoring all these red flags out there?
Yeah. Can you write a Nora Stevens?
Yes, please write Nora Stevens. I know. I like that book. I thought our dialogue was good. I thought it was funny. I'm trying to remember some of the exact questions like that we asked, but I feel like we always throw in a couple fun ones in there.
One of the things I noticed, this doesn't really have anything to do with this particular episode, but as I listened through the season, we end our episodes with final thoughts. And I realized that like I never really have final thoughts because we talk about all our thoughts in the episode.
Well, that's why it's called a final thought. You might have something that I didn't ask that you just is like burning to get out.
Oh, apparently I don't burn with questions or with random answers.
All right, well then if you don't have any final thoughts on that episode, let's transition to our final book, which was A Very Merry Bromance by Lyssa Kay Adams. We had a request, or we had someone ask us if we were going to do a holiday book. So we decided to do that one. And the reason I picked that one is because I personally think that holiday books are very hit and miss. Holiday romance books, and some are good. They're nice and light and fluffy. Some are just a little too unrealistic. I mean, a little too cabin in the Snowden woods. I don't know. That's just, that's not the kind of romance I like. So I picked this one because I enjoyed it. I had already read it. I thought it was only a year old. And it's actually 2 years old. And I don't think holiday books have like staying power like some other books do. Like for instance, If We Were Villains, that's a book from 2018. And we covered that most listened to episode. But I don't feel like a holiday romance has a staying power. So I think next year I'll pick a just released holiday romance.
And maybe one that is an actual Christmas book and not a book that's based in Christmas.
Yes. Okay. So I'm glad you brought that up. In the book, they say they have an argument. The two main characters have an argument. If a book is not a book, a Christmas song or a song that is set in Christmas. And so you and I on the podcast said, is this a holiday romance or is it a story that's set around the holidays? And we decided that it was Christmas/December adjacent.
Yes.
And I came across this reel where a guy actually came up with this formula, and he said that there are 3 essential elements to something being a Christmas or holiday romance. The first element is that the female main character has to be one of these 10 professions: an event planner, a real estate agent, a nanny or a maid, an interior designer, a baker or chef, an executive, a romance writer, a famous actress or a singer, a shop owner, or an advice columnist. Nora Stevens, oh my gosh, wrong person. Gretchen is none of these things. He also said the second element is that it has to be one of these places: New York, a fictitious kingdom, back in time, the North Pole, a town with a Christmas name, a small town in New York, small town in Colorado, small town in Vermont, small town in Maine, or a small town with snow. This book was set in Nashville. It is none of those things.
Strike 2.
And third element, the main love interest has to be one of these things: a prince, a workaholic, an architect, an executive, a single father, a coffee shop owner, a high school flame, a famous actor or singer, a son working for a father, or a Christmas tree farmer. Colton Wheeler is a famous singer, so that checks out. But we have 2 missing elements out of the 3, so it is not a Christmas romance.
Okay, that's fair. And you actually just hinted at it. What if you flip the 2 things? So what if the first one,
no, it doesn't fit. No,
male character is a famous actress or singer, and his main love interest is Gretchen is a workaholic.
I mean, but no, that doesn't fit the formula. He said specifically that the female has to be one of these things.
That's fine.
And apparently this guy is the king of holiday romance. I don't know. I just thought it was really funny because we talked about that and he was saying like, this is what really makes up a Christmas romance. All right. So now that you have listened to or re-listened to all of the episodes, you already said this, but which was your favorite?
Heartless Hunter was my favorite book of the year. I think Just for the Summer would come in at honestly a close second, but Heartless Hunter was really good. I loved everything about that book.
So I think we already talked about we might do, or we probably will do, Rebel Witch, which is number 2 in the end of that series.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess maybe since you liked it so much, Abby Jimenez has a book coming out next spring-ish.
Oh, nice.
That maybe we'll put that in the season 2 lineup.
I wouldn't, well, not that I get a say in it, but I wouldn't mind that.
You absolutely hit us. I mean, kind of.
Yeah, only when you give me 2 choices. You get this book or this book. That is the level of say that I get.
Yes, that has happened. So what do you feel like was your biggest learning moment from the season?
Oh my God, so many. My biggest learning from the season is probably just how to edit a podcast, how to edit and post. I mean, I didn't know anything about that coming into this. So, and every episode along the way I've learned something new about it. So, and maybe that I like rom-coms more than I thought I did.
And as we heard, he likes the romance.
Levels 1 through 3 spice. Anything above us? 3.
Okay, let me ask you, what is it about level 4 and 5, which we have not defined yet, but what is it about level 4 and 5 spice that you don't like? Is it make you uncomfortable reading about it?
Maybe. I don't know.
Do you feel like your parents are in the room when like someone gets naked on TV? Because I'm 42 years old and I still do not want to watch a show where anyone is getting naked if my parents are in the room.
That's funny. I don't think so. I think in my head that level of detail isn't necessary for the story.
Or is it?
That is my 2-cent opinion. That like, look, they could have stayed in level 2 and like alluded to all the other things, and it could have been just as impactful to the story and to the characters and what it meant to like their dynamic.
If you say so.
That's yes.
I think I'm not arguing that. I mean, you can like what you like. If you don't like reading about that much detail, that's fine. But I also think that the kind of sex people are having gives you another look at the maybe deepness or the connection they have, the chemistry they have.
Maybe. I'll keep my mind open.
Okay, that's fair. I will find more steamy books for you. I will find some 4 and 5. I know I have given you other levels.
Fourth Wing is another level.
Well, I would say the court book, like ACOTAR books. I always want to say it wrong, so I always pause. But
yeah, that's true. You did give me those, but I also only made it through 2 of them.
You made it halfway through the 3rd one, and I don't think it's because of that, though. I think it's long. They're long. I mean, you liked Iron Flame. You love Fourth Wing. You like Iron Flame, and you still have not finished that one, and you started it in July.
I know. When we started this, and I was like, I got no time. No time. That is a goal of mine, though, over this holiday break that we're taking, is to finish that fucking book finally.
Yes.
So
yeah. All right. So
what was hold on, let me ask you back. What was your biggest learning moment this season?
I mean, I don't think I learned anything.
Okay, whatever her name was in Dancing with the Stars.
That's exactly what I thought, Anna Delvey. I learned nothing. No, that's 100% not true. I was just trying to actually think of a good answer.
That was funny.
I mean, it is like, far as tactical things that I learned, I mean, this is going to sound silly, but how to use Instagram again, or kind of try to use it. And I mean, for this, I mean, I had obviously never recorded a podcast. I mean, I'm writing scripts. And again, our dialogue is not scripted, but I have to write the opening. So we cover everything. I have to write the questions. You know, I'm writing the summaries and like all those things get posted. So I'm doing those things I've never done before. And I think also just on a level as far as the books go, knowing I'm going to talk about this book with you makes me more thoughtful as I'm reading it. And so that has caused me to, I don't think like change the way I approach it, but think of the book in a different way as I'm going through the book.
Totally. That makes a ton of sense.
No. And again, that's not true with every book I read, because there's books I'm reading that I'm not having you read.
Sure.
But I will tell you, sometimes I'm like, oh, I wonder what Jon would think of this scene or this thing or whatever, especially now that we are doing the podcast because that is a reality. But yeah, it's just kind of it's changed that too.
Right on.
So what was your funniest moment or a funny moment that you laughed out loud as you were re-listening or something that you still think about?
I think the whole Just for the Summer episode is still, I could re-listen to that one and still laugh out loud at us, at ourselves in our banter back and forth on that.
Even though we say hilarious 1,800 times.
1,800 times. Yeah. Yeah. The George Clooney bit in that one.
George Clooney.
Yeah. That's the one that jumps out to me, I think, the most. What about you?
Yeah. That when you said drop it like a hot stone. Like,
Yeah.
we already talked
That was
about
organic.
that. It was totally organic. Yeah, there was, now I'm on the spot, not going to be able to think about, but there were several moments that I just remember cracking up and having to pause because we were laughing at ourselves.
Yeah. It's good to find yourself funny.
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to in season 2?
More books, obvi.
Wait, did you just go on record and say you are looking forward to more books?
Yes, I did. I didn't say more level 5 spice books.
No, I don't mean that. I just mean like reading all the books.
I did ask the other night if we could maybe change our release schedule so I could like not be
Read
so
less
stressed
books.
about reading. But no, we kind of talked about in the beginning when we kicked off this podcast, like I enjoy reading. I'm just
Not used to reading.
not used to reading so much. I'm slower at it. There are other things that I enjoy doing. Like I'm not like you where I pop my headphones in the moment I roll on my side of the bed and then wear them in the shower and then wear them down when I'm making breakfast. And like we don't talk to each other in the morning because I know you have your AirPods in.
Oh, that is crap. That is a load of steaming dog crap.
No, it's true.
You don't like
but
to
it's
talk
also,
to anybody
I don't
in the
also like to
morning.
talk to in the morning either until I have my coffee. That's fair. But the other part is also true.
When you said about more books, I mean, to be really fair to you, I think your reading goal for this year is like, what, 12 books is what you usually say a book a month?
Yeah.
And throughout the course of this podcast, we did one every other week, and this is our 10th episode, but we only did 9 books. So in 18 weeks, you read 9 books. That's pretty freaking awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
So
Go me.
go you.
Self 5.
So high five.
I miss that show. What are you looking forward to in season 2, my dearest?
I really am excited for Rebel Witch.
Yes.
Not just to find out what happens in the book, but also, like we both said earlier, we both really love that episode. So I feel like that dialogue, if we do it, that would be a really great episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just looking forward to making you read more books and talking about them. I really have enjoyed this. And I feel like it's a way for us to have something we do together and connect more and, without just watching TV together, something like that.
Yeah. Right on.
So knowing that we have a break now, what are you going to read that is going to be of your choosing?
I'm going to fucking finish Iron Flame. That's going to happen. I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to dig through my Goodreads archive.
Would you like some recommendations?
This time, no.
Oh, nuts.
Oh, nuts. I'd sent you a snap of a book the other day. I asked if you had on your shelf. I think it was called Wayward. And I think it has there are witches in it, I think, if I remember the back cover. So I might want to read that one. What's on your reading list, Honey Bear, Love Bug? I'm sure you probably have a list of 20 that you're going to get through in the next 2 weeks. So
I'm also
what might those
off the next 2 weeks of work starting in a few days. So there will be a lot of reading going on.
Nice knowing you.
Yeah.
See you in the new year.
I also have a lot of reviews to write for books that I have been neglecting. I am going to reread Iron Flame. I am going to read an arc that I just got sent for a book that releases in May that I think sounds amazing.
I might want to read that too, actually.
Yes. And then I have a lot also to catch up on, like releases that came out this fall that I haven't been able to listen to. Listen/read. I haven't read the Leanne Moriarty book that came out this fall. I haven't read the new TJ Klune book. I haven't read that Blue Sisters book that's been really popular that I have sitting on my shelf.
I wouldn't mind reading that Leanne Moriarty one. I liked the others that you suggested of hers that I read.
Yeah, I like her a lot. Now, funny enough, is it's Big Little Lies that you read. That's by far her highest rated book. And I have read either all her other books or all but one. I love them all, but they're not rated that high. Some of them aren't rated that highly. Even the ones that had been developed into films or series have not been rated that highly, or I should probably say series. I don't think any of them are actually full-length feature films, but her writing style speaks to me, and she says things that I laugh out loud to. So I think that it's just one of those things, like sometimes I'm coming into the books with a certain set of circumstances and facts about myself, and she says things that just speak to me that I really enjoy. But yeah, I have a ton, but those few are just like ones off the top of my head that I know I want to read. And I have one more holiday book that I want to finish before the end of the year. All right. Well, your favorite question. Do you have any final thoughts on the season?
No, surprisingly.
Well, all right then.
Yeah. Wrap it up.
That's what she said.
Wrap it up. Oh, that's funny.
It's not funny when you say that's funny.
It's funny in my head. I'm genuinely surprised that we kept the cadence that we did for this season. I didn't burn out.
Yeah. I don't mean that as a diss either. I know.
No, like it was a lot.
Yes.
Like you just pointed out a little bit ago that my goal was 1 a month. And now I just did 9 in 3 or whatever it was.
Right.
But also that we kept getting better.
Heck yeah, we did. I think you just, you get more comfortable anything.
Yeah, sure. What about you? What are your thoughts? Would you have done anything differently?
Differently. I don't think so. I think that we had a suggestion from a friend of ours really early on to let people know the books we're going to read. And we've already talked about for next season, like really just setting a schedule and having everything kind of predetermined and looking at different newer releases that are coming out in the spring. And not that we won't do older books. Like we've already talked about, like, do we want to do Iron? Doesn't make sense to do Iron Flame. But no, overall, I totally agree with you. I think that for our first season, I'm over the moon with some of the reception that we've gotten and the quality of our podcast, which is 100%. I mean, yeah, it's you and me. It's me writing, the script out and everything, or the questions out, and the dialogue matters, but also like the editing you've done and the quality of the sound itself is all you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, we wanted to remind everyone that we will be taking a short break, but we'll come back to you in February with season 2. You can still follow us on Instagram for updates and possibly some bonus content.
What?
I do have a few things up my sleeve.
Okay.
But we do want to also thank everyone for the support that they've shown us over this first season. We are incredibly grateful. This podcast does not exist unless people listen to it. And we want to make sure that we're putting out content that people actually want to listen to. So if you have thoughts, if you have ideas, please share them with us. And don't forget that also a free way to support our show is by leaving us a review and rating us on whatever platform you're listening on, whether that's Audible, Apple, or Spotify. And if you don't want to rate us, but you have a question, as I mentioned, or a comment or a thought, or you want to send us a rendering of some sort, you can email us at booksimakemyhusbandread@gmail.com. And we would absolutely love to hear from you. And we'll send you some swag.
Oh, yeah, the swag. We've gotten off the swag bandwagon.
I didn't want to keep pushing it down people's throats, but I did send out some swag this week. So
nice.
Don't forget we have it if you want it, but you have to email us.
Yep.
But I guess that's it.
That's another one in the books.
Well, who knows? Maybe this one will be the one your husband listens to.
It's like, wait, which one is he going to read? How's that going to work?
But he should listen to the other episodes and then pick one of those books to read. That's it.
Happy holidays.
However you celebrate, we hope you are surrounded by friends and family, or at the very least, by the books you love.
Hear, hear.
See you for season 2.
Peace.